I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. We're super excited to discuss the aftermath of the Nishnabotna River spill, how concerned citizens unite to protect the Nishnabotna River after one of Iowa's largest fish kills. With Samantha Williams, a young scientist and clean water advocate, and Joey Norris, engineer and concerned citizen. And this evening, other concerned citizens, along with Izaak Walton League's Midwest Save Our Streams coordinator, Heather Wilson, will join the discussion to explore how to move forward with organizing a citizen science stream monitoring based program. And I just, and we all, I think most of you saw that local advocacy is key to protecting waterways for both public health and recreation. Engaging, educating, and empowering local citizens and communities, along with giving them the tools, is one of the first steps in helping to be part of the solution in cleaning up our public lands and waterways. And this monthly series is a project of the Iowa division of the Izaak Walton League. We have rotating co-host. This evening is Chris Henning from the Panora chapter, and she's also a board member of the Iowa division. So thank you, Chris. She's also sporting a flu bug, but she's doing better. And anyway, so I wanted to thank everybody again for being with us this evening. It's an informal conversation, and we will start off with Joey and Samantha, just with a little bit of a background. I think they have a presentation. They want to show a few slides as well. And then we'll get some comments from Heather Wilson. We have Jim LaRue also on board, and Neil Hamilton, who are both experts in law policy. And we'll get some comments from them, as well as Dr. Claire Ruby from Drake University, and maybe some inputs from Chris Henning, who has a great program with Green County, and has done some great work with community development with our Save Our Streams program along the Raccoon. Okay, welcome.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'll just start by briefly introducing myself. Not, I'm an engineer and a concerned citizen, I guess, but I'm born and raised in Red Oak, which is where the East Nishnabotna fertilizer spill from New Cooperative happened. It happened just about 200 yards upriver from where I used to always launch my kayak when I was a kid, and spent most of my weekends and a lot of time on the river over the summer. So the East Nishnabotna is a special waterway to me, and let Samantha introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Samantha Williams. I'm actually originally from Des Moines, and I have a background. I have a degree in biotechnology, a bachelor's in biology, and I actually worked with at the Des Moines Waterworks for several years until I met Joey here, who convinced me to move down to Red Oak. And down here in Southwest Iowa, I worked at Bioprocess Algae, which we focused on researching algae, on how to grow that with CO2 and fermentation and such. But I've always been an advocate for nature and our waterways, and I am looking to become an advocate specifically to kind of help rectify taking samples down here and becoming active here, and building a volunteer base so we can monitor our streams and our rivers down here.
Yeah, we look forward to having a lot of input from everybody on how best to do that. But we'll follow Christine's lead here, and we'll show you our pictures first. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen the pictures of the immediate aftermath of the dead fish and some birds and things like that. These are taken, what, 2 or 3 weeks, I think, later. And this is more about just what was going on around the new cooperative at the time. So you can see the new cooperative in the background, and there's our little our water tower, if you can see on the far right. So we give you a little context. And you can see that's the main waterway that comes out of new cooperative. So it goes under our dike and flows down, and this is, you can see where it enters into the river. And this is the actual waterway. So if you see, can anybody see my mouse? I don't know if that works or not, but there's to the left of the giant corn cathedral, as we call it, and then the grain bin, you see all those little cylinders in the back. That is the main fertilizer holding. And you can, if you look really close, you can see there's a little barrier, and that's where they have a containment. So if the main 500,000 gallon tank leaks, it gets contained. But this building on the left is where they have the smaller ones, and there's no containment there. And that's so it went right down through their parking lot into this little tributary, and then through this stream that you can see right in the middle of the screen and out under the dike. And then it washed out through from your right out, and then through, you can see the little path it took. And that's where they cleared all the trees. And I don't know if there's a better one, but yeah, you can see the difference in what the water coming out looks like and what the water in the river looks like. And this was Samantha's primary concern of why we needed to take action. Comes out right in a very popular outdoor recreation area. So there's little kids on the four-wheeler in the back, and then this motorcycle in the front, driving around in the same area. So they drive through the water, they drive around in the river and in that tributary. Just a little concerning for us. And then they were pumping all the water out of that little tributary into tanks, and then they're tanking it back up into the co-op to sell again to mitigate their losses. And then this was piled here for, I don't know, a month and a little over a month maybe. And then we went out and got pictures of them. They left it piled there for a month. This is just, I wish I could have better context for you, but this is just like 100 yards from the river.
Yeah, this is the dirt that they removed. So after they cut down the trees, they were told that they needed to remove a lot of the dirt that was there. So they removed it from this location pretty much across the road into large piles. Those piles aren't even what it looked like initially, because at the time that we were taking these photos, they were actually transporting the dirt to a field that was actually right next to this and applying it to their cornfield. And this is a picture of what they were doing. So right behind the tree line there is where they had the piles of dirt, and then the road is basically to the left of this field, and across on the other side of the road is where the spill took place.
And this is the same dike that the water flowed under into the river. And that same tributary, those trees right there are another tributary that runs under the dike on the other side of the road. That's just a little context for what it looked like a little while after. I know it's not, it's not as exciting as the immediate aftermath, but I wanted to give you a little context there. But with that said, we're concerned seeing it happen. We're concerned with the immediate response. We heard a lot of kind of bad news about the DNR right off the bat. I spoke with our county sanitarian, Dan Wright, earlier this afternoon, and he had a lot of good things to say about the DNR and their response. They deployed a lot of resources. He admits that it was unprecedented from them as well. They'd never had a spill this big that they told him. And so they were figuring a lot of things out along the way too. So I think we can extend a little grace there. But they had provided him with the well map and the resources to update that map directly. And he went out and they went door to door in Coburg. So just south of Red Oak is a little town called Coburg, and all of their houses are fed by low level wells right along the Nishnabotna River. So they draw water almost from the river, but not quite. and I hope there's some scientists on here that can help us a little better, but he'd said that they found no nitrates, but he just meant in the context of under 10, which is what is like an emergency declaration or whatever, what they have to pay attention to. So he couldn't tell me for sure, but all of the numbers you see on that Iowa well map, those numbers came directly from our county sanitarian in our area. They went door to door in Coburg. They got about 20 people to sign up and do it. And so from a very, very, very local Montgomery County response, I think we did all we could. He is concerned that they didn't see any bump in the nitrate levels. So he doesn't know where the nitrates went. And we had really low water level at the time. So he was really questioning where it all went because he didn't think the water was flowing fast enough for it to go so far so fast. So he doesn't know if it's embedded in the mud or if it's hanging out somewhere or what, but maybe there's some scientists on here that can tell us a little more about that and how that works. But yeah, that's the local response.
That's great. Really, those were great photos from, just that documentation is so important. Just like with Chris Henning and that pig confinement pipe break. I mean, even a month later, collecting samples and, collecting data and taking photos is critical because then you have that full view. So that's fantastic that you guys, were able to capture those photos at that time. I think, I know Claire Ruby's on and maybe she can, her and her students, I think are going to be doing some sampling. Dr. Claire, can you, give any updates that you know of or share with them about the numbers that they were talking about?
Hi, everybody. So I don't know everything that the DNR has done. I have also heard that there was a lot of work done by them. I also know that Dave Swertney over at the Center for Health Effects of Environmental Contamination reached out to DNR about trying to test some more wells. So it's probably worth following up with him about that. What else? Hang on just a second. There we go. As far as what happened, hi, Mike Delaney. He just popped up on my screen. As far as what happened with the private wells in Coburg, if water's really low, but we still have what we'd consider a gaining stream condition where groundwater is flowing into the river, then you wouldn't have flow from the river into the groundwater. But I have not looked into that. But that is a condition that can happen if the water level, in the valley is a little bit higher, the water table is a little bit higher and the stream is really low, then groundwater can actually flow into the river and discharge via the river rather than the other way around. But it can also just take time, even if they're relatively shallow wells, depending on what's there in the subsurface, it could take time for that nitrate to move into the private wells. So there might be some wisdom in continuing to sample them, probably monthly or quarterly, if nitrate hasn't shown up now.
Thank you, Claire. Our county sanitarian plans to do it within the next 1 to 2 months to get everybody resampled again. How long should he keep sampling?
Honestly, I would just need to do some more work to look at what's in the subsurface, and I can answer that better. Okay. And it's worth talking to our colleagues at DNR about that as well. But there's definitely some folks that are willing to have those conversations. So I can look at the private well data that he's got there already, and if there's enough well depth and maybe some geologic information from 1 or 2 wells, we can probably make some more informed recommendations, but I wouldn't want to do that right this minute.
Come on, Claire, you're on camera.
Yeah, there you go. I'll just turn that camera off. As long as I'm talking, my former colleague, Matt Gresh, who's in contaminated sites at DNR currently, and I went on an adventure, unofficial adventure, down in there last Friday. So we toured and we did 2 samples of DNA in the stream. So one upstream of Red Oak and one at the first downstream bridge crossing where there's a new access being put in, which looks awesome. So
That's our road.
Yeah.
that's your road. Okay,
Yeah, we're kind of excited about it, if you can't tell.
Yeah.
Once the water's clean, obviously.
I will tell my student because she will be doing the work ongoing this summer that there's some friendly folks down there if she breaks down or something. Maybe not that friendly. Okay. But anyway, so we maybe in a month or so will get those first results. We had to wait till the water levels come down. And I am not a fish expert, but Matt Gresh is more of a fish expert than I am, and he tells me that the fish probably tried not to move downstream during the high water levels. I was worried that everything would just get flushed out and that we wouldn't see any differences, and we still might not being that close. But he thought it took longer for the fish communities and bugs and other things to move back in. So we'll let you know when we find out.
Great.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Mike Delaney has his hand up, and then I'd like Neil to just, Neil Hamilton's on, and I'd just like him to talk a little bit about the letter that was written on behalf of citizens just concerned about monitoring the niche. Okay, Mike.
Yeah, for those of you who are kind of new to the story, when we got word that there would be that public gathering down there, Dell and I went down to attend and to sit in on some of the discussions there in Shipley. And Dell did some fish printing, and we added on some signatures to the petition that Neil had put together and met some of the local people. On the way out of town the next day, I tested the water on the highway, straight east there out of Shipley. And I found 0 nitrogen, but we had a lot of rain. We had, the tornadoes went through that area and there were storms and a lot of runoff. So I suspect that the nitrogen was pretty well flushed. Well, it evidently was pretty well flushed down the river when I did the testing. The water was muddy and there were dead fish and just not much life in the river. So I'm really interested in the rate of return of fish and amphibians. I don't know about mussels. I don't know if there's any record of mussels in that stretch of river below Red Oak. Probably a lot of shifting sands and bottom. It's not very good for mussel populations to start with. So that'd be an interesting thing, Joey. If anybody down there, any anglers or whatever can tell you that they ever see mussels or mussel tracks or dead mussel shells on the shore, I'd be interested in that. And by the way, I was glad to meet Scotty Gritters over at the Zabula chapter on the Mississippi River. He's a mussel expert with the DNR that's very interested in mussels. And then we have Jennifer Kurth also, who's done quite a bit of mussel research. There have been some serious studies about mussel populations in some parts of the state, really good numbers on the raccoon, but we're down to, less than 1% of what used to be there, even in the 70s. So the mussels are hit hard everywhere, but I'd be interested in if there's any mussels surviving in the niche. So that's all I have to say. Thanks, Christine. It's a nice sized group here this evening.
Thank you, Mike. What
Yeah.
Mike was referring to, nobody really talked about the Sydney event, Mike, but an artist by the name of Tracy Levitt in Sydney knows Seth Watkins, and she was having another event that she normally has. And when this happened, she decided to make it a community event and put together some specialists that would be able to talk about the Nish spill and some of the impacts of it. And so Mike Delaney went down as the Izaak Walton League's conservation director to help out and take the SOS chemical kit down and just go over a few things like that. And he met Joey at that time. And Samantha, you must have been there as well. So that's what he was talking about when he said that he was also getting signatures. So just before we go too long, I just wanted to have Neil talk a little bit about the letter that was sent in with signatures on it to Director Lyons and why that was done, just for a little background. So Neil, could you just give us a little bit of background about that?
Sure, Christine. Thank you. And
Thank-
so when the spill on the Nish happened, like all of you, I was very concerned by it. I did some research on the DNR director's authority, and there's an interesting provision in the Iowa Code concerning her investigative powers. But one of the provisions provides that if 25 citizens or more write her a letter, they can request an investigation. So that's why I drafted a letter. It was circulated among the Sparks group and then among others. And over the course of several days, 60 some people signed it. I delivered it to Secretary Lyons' office on the end of April. And the letter basically, said that we were, in demanding that the DNR conduct an investigation into the spill, why it happened, but more importantly, how it could be prevented. And then in addition, and this is a piece of the pie that I think needs to be further examined, that uh, they investigate the adequacy of the rules for the storage of agricultural chemicals. And my understanding is, of course, those rules in part are administered by IDOLS, which has been, I think, surprisingly, though perhaps not surprisingly, but amazingly silent on this whole issue. Secretary Nag, I don't believe, has ever made a statement concerning it. And so that letter went to Secretary Lyons, and the DNR recommended to the EPC, the Environmental Protection Commission, that in fact the investigation be referred on to the Attorney General's office. And at their meeting on May 22nd in Ottumwa, the EPC voted unanimously to request that the Attorney General's office conduct an investigation, or that they conduct their own enforcement action. The AG has much broader powers from an enforcement and both civil and criminal penalty provisions than does DNR. And so that's where it sits now. I've never had any communication of any type from DNR or anyone else concerning the letter, and they may well have made the recommendation without it. But I think that part of the purpose of the letter was just to make sure that they knew that there were interested citizens following what they were doing. And I think it's important that all Iowans recognize that this could have happened anywhere. It was just the misfortune for Joey and Samantha and locals that it happened in Red Oak on the Nish. It could have just as easily happened on the Raccoon or the Des Moines or the Cedar or anywhere. And that's why it's such an important issue that needs to both be investigated and needs to be, I think, continue with our follow-up and concern for how it's handled.
Thank you so much, Neil. That's fantastic. So that gives us a little bit of background. Samantha and Joey, do you want to comment a little bit more, or would you like to hear from Heather about the program and how it works with the basic background?
We can go either way. I'll make a real quick comment
Yeah,
that
please.
on Neil's, like the fact that this happened to us is really bad for us, but it should open everybody's eyes. And if we do not take advantage of how how terrible this is for the Nishnabotna, it's going to happen to somebody else. And so we're going to talk later about how to form like a group to advocate on behalf of the waterways. But I think people like Mike and Neil that can be more of, and Jim LaRue, that can be more of the legal arm behind a recreational movement is so important. And because that's just way over us. We don't have the time nor the skills to do it, though we can throw a lot of passion behind enjoying the river. And so I'd love to hear from Heather on how to advocately continue to monitor the stream so we can protect it, and then maybe talk in a little bit about how to form a group to keep doing that.
That would be great. And we do have, we have Maggie with her hand up. And then I'd just like to get a couple words from Jim LaRue, because he's another environmental attorney who might have a few words of wisdom too. So Maggie, let's have you address your question real quick, and then we'll go to Jim, and then we'll go to Heather.
Hi, I live 2 miles west of where the spill happened. The creek on my farm feeds into the Nishnabotna, and I know Joey and Samantha very well. Hi. I've been very disturbed by this, and I've been trying to figure out what I could do. And the biggest thing I found is I'm also on the assistant commissioner on a soil and water conservation district in Montgomery County. And I've spoken to the mayor of Red Oak, several city council members, and our supervisors, and not one of them have heard one word from New Co-op. And our new co-op was a recent merger in August of 2023. Before that, we had a much more local co-op, United Farmers Co-op. My family's been a member of the co-op since 1900, as early as the co-op's been here. And I can't find the name of any board members on the new co-op website. I've received my monthly newsletters, not one mention of the spill in any newsletter to the members, but they are heavily promoting their charitable donations to our local groups in Red Oak. And no one knows who is on the board of directors. There's, the management, a couple of management people. If you really sift through things, you can find them. And so I've been wanting, and I signed on to Neil's letter. I'm a member of Client Land Leaders, and I've been wanting to figure out how to talk about when you have a disaster, a corporation should be front and center and acknowledging the situation and taking responsibility. And there has not been one word. There is not, ever since our merger, I have never seen a senior member of New Co-op present. I don't even really know, through rumors, I know who's managing our local co-op now. But a junior level member of the staff was fired because of this, but no member of senior management, no board member, there's nothing, no word, radio silent in our community. And that is totally disreputable. That's horrible. And it's kind of like they're up there in Fort Dodge and they don't care about us. And that would have never happened if we had had a more localized co-op. But the other side of the coin is, where do we go to market our grain? Where do we go? We're kind of stuck with one option. And so do you complain and cut off your nose to spite your face? I don't know. So it's a big dilemma, and I'd love to try to hold New Co-op to account for this, and I don't know quite how to do it.
Thank you so much, Maggie. That's amazing. I'm going to let Jim pop in real quick, and then we'll head to Heather, because I want to for sure get a few minutes of her great expertise, since she runs our program. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm impressed by the continued level of interest, some intensity. I think people are acting on instinct, which is a positive thing. And what we are doing in Northeast Iowa, no two of these events and no two of these regions will be exactly the same, but it is my intuition that going forward, it may well be citizens' response to the protection of particular ecological features that have become threatened, not always by industrial agriculture, but I think with some frequency, because that is what's new and different and colossal, and whatever benefits may be there, it seems in so many cases the externalities are suffered by the public. To rally around water is what a group in Northeast Iowa that is forming called the Driftless Water Defenders. There's a reason for those names. There's an intuition that the energy that is in the present moment is defending things as opposed to charging forward. And that at least in the Northeast part of the state, there's a palpable sense that a heritage of clean water was what the first settlers discovered and noted frequently in their diaries, and that many people who are still alive experience in their lifetime, but they can feel that they're losing it, whether for drinking, for commercial use, for recreation. It's changing, and not just gradually for the worse, but precipitously. So one way to organize, that's the question. I'm not sure that people outside a community can be prescriptive, but I also think that going forward, that an intuition that it may not be at the city council level necessarily, or some other jurisdictional level to which we have habitually and for a long period of time organized ourselves. They're still there, they're still important, but are there regions that can coalesce around threatened water resources in a new way, or can existing groups assist those individual citizens who are organizing around specific threatened water resources that may be the organizing motif of the future? The arguments will be similar in certain ways because we're arguing against structures of government regulations. Too often regulators who are captured by the industries they're supposed to regulate, who have become responders to crises rather than regulators to prevent crises. That can be similar. And we're going against large sums of money that are organized to protect profit centers rather than these forms of water. So I would just offer that whatever, as we experiment in our own way, anything that we would beneficially learn that could be helpful, we want to do that. Also don't want to intervene more than helpful. But I think individual creative acts, I don't remember a prior letter like Neil's, and it worked, right? And some things that we'll try will work and some won't, but we've got to be creative and think in new ways. We have our first public organizational meetings of the Driftless Water Defenders this Saturday at 3:00 in the afternoon in Decorah, Iowa. We'll see how it goes. My sense is on the ground that there's positive feelings about this. And we can't forget that in polling, over 90% of Americans and Iowans strongly support access to clean water. It's a fundamental right. And the sentiment, and soon I hope the law and our activities are on our side. That's why we should be hopeful.
Thank you so much, Jim. That's fantastic. Okay, Heather. So let's go to Heather Wilson. She is the Izaak Walton League's Midwest coordinator of the Save Our Streams program. Super knowledgeable, and she's dealing with all kinds of different groups and individuals who have been advocating and testing, and so let's hear a little bit from Heather with her background. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. And I want to preface everything I'm about to say by I'm definitely still learning. My background is in environmental education, so it's about distilling complicated topics and kind of translating it So I turn to Claire and other experts for more detailed and data-driven questions. But my job as the Save Our Streams coordinator is to connect individuals with monitoring opportunities. So these are community science, otherwise known as citizen science. Basically, we're inviting anyone who's interested, regardless of their background, their age, their day job, to be scientists with us and to do real water quality monitoring and report their data so that it can be seen and used by others. And we try and reduce barriers wherever possible. We have a couple different monitoring programs that we support. The Save Our Streams program is kind of like the flagship. It's the one that has been around for the longest, and it involves some training and some supplies, but you can find out more about that on the Izaak Walton League's website. But the one that I want to make sure I mention that I think has a definite tie into what we're talking about today is Nitrate Watch. And I can drop the link in the chat. It's just nitratewatch.org is the website you can go to like learn more about everything. But essentially, if you haven't heard me talk about this before, this is a community science program that we're calling crowdsourced because it is just so, it has such a wide breadth of, geographic scope. But we're sending free test kits to folks who request them as supplies allow. I have to give that caveat. And they come in the mail, and it includes a bottle of nitrate test strips that looks like this. There's 25 strips in here. And it also includes instructions about how to use the test strips. It's super simple. It takes 30 seconds to read a test strip. And it also includes instructions about how to report your results. And so this is kind of a quick and dirty way to test tap water, which can be public or private well, or surface water like rivers, lakes, and streams. And then, of course, importantly, report that data out. We use the Clean Water Hub, which is a database that the Izaak Walton League supports the development of, and we maintain it and improve it and keep it working nicely. But this database is really powerful because we have volunteers across the country and tons of volunteers in Iowa submitting their data. And so your data point isn't just this isolated thing, it's becoming part of a bigger picture. And this can be really valuable to folks who are organizing locally because you can zoom in and you can see with your eyes the color coding. Like, we got a lot of high readings going on and you don't need a degree to understand. It generates graphs. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that you can do with this free resource. So I hope that if anyone is interested, that you check out nitratewatch.org, request a kit, or just explore the website. There's fact sheets that you can use if you're communicating with, decision makers or just community members who maybe they don't have a lot of background knowledge about nitrate pollution. We've got a fact sheet about the human health impacts, about the environmental impacts, algae blooms, all of that great stuff. We've got one about the economic impact. So by no means the only place that you need to go when you're researching about nitrate pollution, but it's definitely a great place to start. And I am happy to be a resource as well. I can drop my email in the chat too, but feel free to reach out to me or anyone else from the league, and we're happy to help connect you with some monitoring supplies and outreach supplies.
And Heather, can you just talk a little bit about like becoming fully certified? I've done that. It is like I'd have to like really go out and be mentored with somebody who does it all the time.
It's a team sport. Yeah. It helps to have a second opinion, even if you are really well practiced. But yeah, Christine's referring to the Save Our Streams program, specifically our biological monitoring. So that refers to gathering the macroinvertebrates that live in the stream and identifying them. And based on the identity of the critters that you collect, we can actually discern the stream health score. So certain macroinvertebrates are more or less sensitive to pollution. And so if we find a lot of critters that are really sensitive to pollution, it means, well, they wouldn't be there if our stream was highly polluted. So we have a healthier stream. Whereas if we're only finding critters that are really tolerant to pollution, or maybe we're only finding 1 or 2 species total, well, that's not good. That's not biodiverse. That's not indicative of a healthy stream. So this is the SOS biological program. And to become certified as an SOS biological volunteer, there are steps, and I'm gonna just throw another URL in the chat. If I can type, there we go. Can't type and talk though. I don't have that skill. But at this website, you can see the steps, but essentially it starts with an online training where you'll watch some videos and take some quizzes about water quality basics and sort of like beginning to identify macroinvertebrates. It sounds like impossible, but I promise it's not. With practice, it is completely doable. But then importantly, there is a field training component. And so in Iowa, you're lucky to have a network of, I think, about a dozen trainers across the state who host trainings, usually in the spring or the fall, but it kind of just depends on their schedule. And so if you attend one of those trainings, you'll get to practice collecting the macros, identifying them, and asking any questions. And once you complete the training, you'll take another test and you'll be certified. So all of that is laid out on the website I shared. But also at that training, we typically, if the trainer has the stuff, they will introduce you to the chemical monitoring. I think Mike Delaney kind of referred to that earlier. And some groups really latch on to this chemical monitoring because it's quick, it's relatively simple once you've done it once or twice, and you don't need any formal training to actually do it. We do it at the trainings, but if you want to just do chemical monitoring and you have access to supplies, you can do that today. So with the chemical monitoring, we do nitrate, phosphate, chloride, pH, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, temperature. And to do that, you obviously need supplies. And in Iowa, again, you're lucky to have a network of equipment loan stations, places where we've placed equipment throughout the state with some partners and other organizations. Raccoon River Watershed is one of them. And you can borrow that equipment for free. It's kind of like a library system. Just bring it back, hopefully clean. And yeah, so the closest one to Red Oak, I think, is actually, it's not terribly close, but it's Honey Creek Nature Center. It's like outside of Omaha. So that's a source of testing equipment if you're interested, those who are out near the niche. But otherwise, I mean, obviously request a nitrate watch kit. We'll get that right to your doorstep. We're not Amazon though, so do not expect it tomorrow. Give us a week.
Yeah, that's great. Joey and Samantha, do you have some questions? Or I was also gonna, Chris Henning's on, and she has a great program, which we talked a little bit about before everybody else came on. She started this Save Squirrel Hollow program near the Raccoon River in Jefferson in Greene County. And it's been kind of a star program for the Save Our Streams program because the data that's gone in there has been significant. And they've actually had a pig confinement pipe break, and it filled up one of the tributaries, which they have 2 years of data on. So it's been kind of like a really nice little case study per se. And Mike Delaney has his hand up again. Mike's been a part of that too. He runs up there with a few others from our from the Des Moines area. You're muted, Mike.
But yeah, I wanted to throw something in. I don't mean to distract you from the flow here of the discussion, but I think it's important to try to form a network of people who are interested in the Nishnabotna. Joey, I came on a little late, so maybe you've already dealt with that. If not, Joey's shaking his head. I'd be happy to help with gathering emails of people on this call and others who are interested in forming a loose network. I've got 2 models for that. We have the elders group that Neil mentioned, which is a non-group. It's intentionally a non-group. So it can't be killed off. It can't be co-opted, can't get bought off. It's just people who care, who get together every Monday to talk about what we can do about the destruction of the Iowa ecosystem. That's one model, just Zoom people, or it's like a coffee group. Some call them prayer groups. We don't pray much, but we do think we're doing the morally right thing with that Sparks bunch. The second model is the Raccoon River Watershed Association, which has officers, 501c3 constitution. It has regular meetings. It has dues. It does newsletters, and it's sponsored a great deal of research over the years, about $50,000 of research on the Raccoon River, and has organized conferences over time. So I've talked to Joey about this. You know, if Joey or somebody else wants to head up some kind of network, I'd recommend just starting off with a list of emails. And if somebody could coordinate a Zoom meeting on a regular basis, you can share information. And my first concern would be, how's the river doing? Can we speak for the river? Who is speaking for the Nishnabotna? Normally, nobody speaks for any of our rivers. The Raccoon River Association speaks for the raccoon. Where do they get their authority? Right from the community. Totally grassroots. So that's what I wanted to throw in there, Christine.
Thanks, Mike. And now Maggie has her hand up, and then we'll get back to Chris because she has a nice story.
I was just gonna say the Golden Hills RCD, it manages the Nishnabotna Watershed, WMA, Watershed Management Authority, and it includes the East and West Nishnabotna. Right now, the West Nishnabotna is a high priority watershed for flood and erosion mitigation and projects, primarily because of the flooding on the Missouri River and the Nish flowing into there. But those are all more structural. There is work being done on planting riparian buffers along the watershed and doing it weirs and things, which I'm not as much in favor of. But yeah, that's from more of a technical management as opposed to voluntary management, managing the quality of the watershed. I just thought I'd throw that in there. I'm not knowledgeable about it since I'm on Soil and Water Conservation District.
Thanks, Maggie.
Mike, you still have your hand up. Did you not take it down, or did you want to say something?
Thanks, Christine.
Okay, thanks. Okay. He always has his hand up. Just teasing Mike. He's fantastic. We love him. Chris, do you want to just share what how it's impacted you by having community members engaged and concerned?
Sure. So 3-4 years ago, I've been involved in the Raccoon River Watershed Association since 2008, which is nearly when Mike Delaney started showing up at libraries talking about pig confinements and how we could save the raccoon from pig confinements. And that was my main focus to begin with. It was also my focus when we started the Save Squirrel Hollow, which is the county park that is 1.5 miles from my house. A young man decided he was going to put a pig confinement a 1/2 mile from me, another neighbor, and another neighbor in sort of a triangle. And I have 4 creeks that feed into the raccoon in that 1.5 miles. And he is at the top of that watershed. We tried to dissuade him from having a hog confinement. That didn't work. But what we did, knowing he was going to build it, was start to test. And that first year, to lay in a baseline. And a baseline's wonderful when you don't think anything's going to happen. Because it's all put into the hub, the Izaak Walton hub, and it stays there forever. We have stats from before the Raccoon River watershed tested water, and with some of the same points. So what we were trying to prove, or what we were hoping to see, was that there wasn't any change in our water quality. Well, we wear vests that this grant paid for. We show up en masse at, I think we're up to 54 sites in our county. And we have about 20 people who are now involved, whether they are certified or like me, who's read the information, taken the test, but never done the macrobiotic test live. I'm just not into that stuff in the water, or whatever. But I can help, and I can. Bob Rye, who is our coordinator for the SOS, puts it all in the, sets up the times, makes sure he has teams, puts it all in the hub, and is colorblind, and he can't tell blue from red, and he can't tell orange from yellow. And so we have to be a team, or he has to have a team member with him. Well, people see us out and about, and the neighbors know that I'm all for this testing. And one day in August last year, somebody called me and said, the woman who's the photographer basically for the eagles and reports on eagles to the DNR, called me and said, have you seen that creek? We call it Shiner Creek because we're positive there used to be Topeka shiners in this creek. And it had a beaver who had two that we could see, very large dams. He had a great home. His beaver pond was as black as Samantha's shirt. The water was awful. Oh, and besides black, then it had all of this scummy white foamy junk around the edges and in a kind of a slime spot. Trying to figure out where it came from, and then realizing after talking to Claire Ruby that maybe we better get the DNR involved like right away so that they could check it out. And on Monday, Allison Mans from the DNRs sent two guys, and by afternoon, after she sent these young guys who'd never worked on a spill before, and they were positive that they had located the source, she was up here from Atlantic. And indeed, there was a hole in the wall of an outside, most of the new hog confinements have it in like a basement. This was an outside lagoon, like a hot tub for pig shit. Anyway, and 600,000 gallons of hog manure in the beaver's home. Thankfully, the beaver and his family had it contained, because that would have been a terrible mess into the Raccoon, which is the drinking water for Des Moines and Yale and Van Meter and several other, I don't remember how many other places along the river between, in the 89 miles from here to Des Moines. Chris Jones always told me that the water from here could be in Des Moines in less than 3 days. So anyway, they had to pump first the terrible mess. And they did what you saw at the niche. They put up a barrier trying to keep it from going any further. After after they finally realized it really was them, because they were positive it couldn't be them. It was not the new confinement. It was one 3 miles away, and it sent all of that through the county tiles that came to light about half a section, half a mile from where we found it, in a real creek by then, out of the tile, into the creek, into the beaver's pond. It was awful, awful. It stunk. It looked awful. I hate to say that the people who own the farmland are far, far away, probably had no idea. I'll bet they still don't know. And the young farmer who farms around it had no connection with the pigs. and they had to use trash pumps on his side because he had standing corn in the field, and there was no other way to get to it. So pumped it out, flushed it with that much more water that they brought from town, and spread both the first batch and the second batch on the ground in farmers' fields where there was cover crops or alfalfa or pasture. And of course, somebody thought, well, we ought to let it flush, and they tried to get rid of the beaver. And the first time, the beaver went somewhere and came back and built his dam again. But I hate to say that this spring they did it on purpose, and they destroyed his home and probably the beaver, and it has not recovered. It looks like the mess that you are dealing with now, although the water is much clearer, and we're not looking at nitrates much more than 18 to 20, which we would expect because there is in that field tile, in that county tile, it's probably draining 1,200, 1,400 acres. So the nitrates, yes, that they put on last fall, that sat there because of the drought, and we got good rains this spring, and anything they put on this spring has come through that tile and is still in that water, is still flushing from there. But I can't say enough about the SOS program. We have a loaner kit. It's a long ways. I might see Jan at Des Moines this weekend, out at Altoona. And if it's something you want to try, and if you need a kit down there for a month or so while you get yours involved or together, I'd be happy. I thought she would be in Altoona on Saturday, so will I. I'll try to get it for you.
Chris, you guys, Greene County also has the Des Moines chapter loaner kit up there because you do so much testing, and I've just left it up there right now because we don't have any immediate requests. So our loaner kit is already up there because Bob needs them all on the ground for when they go out once a month, but maybe we can figure that out.
Sounds good.
That'd be great to get our hands on a loaner kit. Chris, thanks for offering.
All right.
And mom, thanks too.
Yeah, there you go. Dale Braun is on. He is our state division president, and I just wanted to acknowledge Dale. He popped on just a few minutes after we were doing introductions. Dale, I just wanted to say hello and thank you again for your great leadership with all the things we're working on. So everybody, I just wanted to acknowledge Dale. Thank you.
I can't just not say anything. I wanted to acknowledge Joey and Samantha's pictures because I'd never seen the ground level pictures of the new co-op. And Neil talked about the IDOLS requirements earlier, but IDOLS has a strict requirement that any distribution from nitrogen or fertilizer facilities must be in the contained area. And it was clear from the pictures that you showed that the distribution area was not in the containment area. So that tells me right away that new co-op and any other facility may not even be adhering to the IDOLS rules for the exact kind of accident, whatever you want to call it, that happened there in Red Oak. So I just want to thank you for those pictures, and that's just some more information for anyone else to say, hey, when you contact new co-op, you could say to them, so have you got your distribution center in the containment area? I know you got a dike around there because of the river flooding potential, but you clearly have culverts that go right to the river, and that's where the 500-some thousand gallons went. So thanks for the pictures and just some more information for you. And thanks for everybody else for participating today. It's really great to have 60-some people on this call. It's great. So thank you.
It's 33 right now, Dale, but that's still really good.
I can't do the math, I guess. So
Yeah, no, that's great. We're thrilled, and especially for a nice summer evening. It looks like Jim LaRue has his hand up, so let's hear from Jim real quick, and then
One point that strikes me that maybe the National Izaak Walton League could be helpful with, and not every state is the same, but in Iowa, I think we, a few months ago, had a tipping point when the cancer registry noted that Iowa had the highest cancer rate of any state, and we were second to the worst next to Kentucky. I think that, and the way that establishment representatives in the cancer registry responded as if a captured agency, they pointed to what they said were binge drinking by older Iowans, as if to overlook or fear the strength of the agricultural industrial lobby. When you look at the data, I think it will be increasingly important for those of us who are focused on water to point to credible studies that show this link between nitrate contamination of water and cancer rates. The data seems to be richer, deeper on the air side of it than on the water side. And it's beyond the capacity of most of us local groups to accumulate data. But that would be a suggestion, because I think it's going to be one thing to be testing water, which I think is fantastic. I love the sound of the program. But to translate that test into an action step, I think takes the link between the harm demonstrated by the test and real people. And it's something that is urban and rural. So that would be a suggestion, that if people with Izaak Walton and your own networking that you do can help to accumulate those resources, it would be helpful. And at some point in litigation or otherwise, that kind of proof that it just isn't a reading that disturbs us, it's a reading that harms us. And the real, and I'll be quite after this, but the disturbing thing about that data that came out a couple months ago is that epidemiological results lag about 10 years from the reality. It takes a few years for the chemicals to evolve into cancers. And just like the scientists who want to know about the age of the universe, they take their telescopes and point it deep backwards in time to the universe. These readings are disturbing because they really are a snapshot of about what was going on 10 years ago, which really is in time, just about the time that industrial agriculture in Iowa began to show its face. So it's only going to get worse. And kind of linking these energies that we have and these real harms, I think is going to be an important part of our narrative. And whatever Izaak Walton League can do nationally, if there are resources there or someone's accumulated the data, it would be helpful. But I'm just telling you, as one person, as a layperson looking at it, I'm more impressed at the width and depth of data having to do with air, and they're linked, but to link it to the water can be a vital part of the arguments that we make and the message that we spread to others who we want to be a part of what we're doing.
Thank you, Jim. And Mike?
Yeah, briefly, thank you, Jim LaRue. Jim is spear pointing a very, very significant move forward for all of us who care about the ecology of Iowa. I just wanted to say, since I know some people here on the call that some of you may not know, I want you to know that Vicki Arnold is past president of the National Izaak Walton League from Dubuque. Lisa McIntyre is on the national board, is very influential with the Izaak Walton League. Mark Pranger is on this call, and he's on the board of the Des Moines Ikes. Larry Stone, I see, is on this call. And if you want to know what's going on in Bloody Run up there with that cattle operation, that huge fiasco, Larry's on top of it and is a major player in that big fight. It's a really good story because of the corruption involved in it. I mean, it's good for us to try to keep a light on these issues. Maybe the public cares, maybe they'll vote. I don't know. And of course, Claire Ruby is a hero in my book, if not a saint. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Mike, so much for all those great points that you pointed out. And Joey and Samantha, can you do you have any other questions? Because we have often we go into after an hour, but that's usually what we try to sum it up in an hour. But sometimes we stay on a few minutes extra because people are interested. And we still have 33 people on here, and it's a few minutes after 8, so that's a pretty significant interest on a beautiful summer evening in June.
I think the only question I have would take a while, and so I'm gonna put my contact information in here, and I really want to thank Mike Delaney for calling me the other day, because about how do we actually form a group that could maybe support the driftless water defenders, use them as more of a legal arm for really advocating, and keep us as a group that really enjoys the water, so we can keep interest in it, and then use you guys as more of the hammer. But filter people through by making them enjoy the water, and then they'll become strong advocates later. And I really would like to talk through different models of doing that. I know Christine thinks we might be able to do it as a sub chapter of some other group, and Mike thought we should just make our own loose collection of our own elders or sparks, and then I know that we could probably form our own real group with the Secretary of State's office and things like that. So my contact information is there. Feel free to call me or email me if anybody has some solid thoughts on how to do that, so I can help Maggie. I'm sure Maggie and her partner Steve are going to help me do it, I imagine. So that's the only thing I have to talk about.
And
And
then,
just even
go
ahead.
And then Heather, I'll be reaching out to you to get that training done here. I already have several locations in mind where I want to start sampling, and just to get a schedule in place, and maybe kind of reviewing the locations to make sure they're good spots as well, within the county, at least getting that location situated first, and then kind of moving from there.
Yeah, definitely. Shoot me an email. And if you haven't already, or if it's not already on your radar, it might also be a good idea just to contact your county conservation office, or there's an RC&D. They might be generous and already have, volunteer monitoring as a dream of theirs. But if only there was a dedicated volunteer that would
I'll reach out to
So-
them. We're really close with the gal who runs our county conservation group. So
Awesome.
she's awesome, and she's a big advocate for water as well. So
happy to hear it.
That's fantastic. And that's what I was just going to recommend, is even just starting out. That's why I hooked you up with Heather this evening, is because I thought that would be a great way to start an informal group of just monitors, monthly monitors, and then just see how it evolves.
The more people you can get in your area who are interested in the niche and in the environment, the better off you'll be. You'll find that you have skills you don't even realize you've got, and resources you don't even realize are in your county. until you start trying to pull something together.
Mhm.
It's really great.
Yeah, we've already run across that with several of these, like Maggie mentioned, the RC&D. We're making a strong case for the East Nishnabotna instead of that little West Nishnabotna, over there dangling off the side.
Yeah. I'm always doing that too, and I know, well, actually, the East Nishnabotna was the first priority watershed. The West is now, but also, Samantha, through Community Heart and Soul, there's a lot of people in Red Oak who like to use the river, and I've noticed many people aren't at the landing on Cool Ball anymore because of the fertilizer spill. So I think, and there's a big group of people with fan boats and that like to use the river. But Golden Hills would love to coordinate with us, I'm sure.
And Red Oak Community Heart and Soul is a nonprofit organization that I am the project coordinator for currently. I'm going around within the Red Oak Community School District pulling information from community members on what's working, what's not working, and what they love about Red Oak and what we can plan for the future. So that's another group of great people that I can also connect with regarding the river here too.
And Samantha, I know for a fact many of those people are kind of the group that aren't as connected through the rest of the community. I can talk to you offline on that.
Thanks, Maggie.
Well, that's fantastic. Do we have any more questions for anybody this evening? We
Might just mention, Christine,
yeah.
that you do a recap and send the recording so
Yes.
that we have the chat and the recording, so you have some background information and all of our info, who was there and all of that.
Okay,
So.
if everybody's okay, we do have Terry. Yeah, I saw an email from you. Yeah, Terry, what did you have to say? I know you've been interested because you tested some.
No, I saw Terry, I saw your data point in the hub. It was very high.
Yeah, we wanted to ask about that too.
That was on like Labor Day, so or the 28th or 29th. I still got like 50. How do you determine between 20 and 50? You guess?
So this is the imperfect science, right? It used to be that the guidance from Hawk, the manufacturers, was to round to the nearest. But now the guidance is to estimate between two colors. So when it gets up higher on the test strip, the intervals become really wide. It's between 20 and 50. So to be completely honest, it's using your best guessing abilities, but being decisive because the color will continue to change after 30 seconds. So hopefully you and maybe another person can take a look at it and really quickly make an assessment. But that's why
I also saw a correlation between the nitrate and the nitrate and the nitrite. Seemed like the higher the nitrate, also the nitrate followed it a little bit.
yeah, and see, this is getting in just a little bit my depth. So if I say anything wrong, Claire, feel free to correct me. But nitrite is another form of, nitrogen and oxygen. It just has a slightly different makeup. And to my understanding, nitrite is quickly converted into nitrate in water. So if we have like a really fresh fertilizer spill, there will be more nitrite, which will quickly convert into nitrate. So that's my understanding, but maybe there's other sources of nitrite as well that I don't know about.
The other thing we did, we invested in the ammonia test when Allison Mann said she had never seen ammonia that fresh and that strong. 300 parts per million, wasn't it, Claire, that she said? And it goes from a yellow that's almost clear, and what she had was almost as orange red as Joey's shirt. It was amazing. and amazing. I'm
That-
not a scientist. I'm just curious, and it was amazing to me.
That's great that both Joey and Samantha's shirts were used this evening to describe the the Raccoon River water near Squirrel Hollow.
S colors.
That's fantastic. Well, I want to thank everybody I can't believe we have this great of a turnout. This is fantastic. Great work, Samantha and Joey and Heather and everybody else that we have on here. I'm so grateful. It's been fantastic. And I will share this link. I hope I can get it edited tomorrow, and I will email back the chat box for everybody that registered. And so anyway, we'll get that out. And next month we have Dan Hogg from not Hogg, Haig. I never say his name right. It's Haug. He's from Prairie Rivers of Iowa. He's going to be presenting with Lynn Drimble from Wisconsin, and they're going to be talking about, again, waterways and water quality within the watersheds of Iowa and Wisconsin. And Dan is amazing. He's really good at data analysis and research, and he presented at the Raccoon River Watershed Conference this past spring, and he was phenomenal. He just really put it into a real easy way to understand it. And just a little plug for Heather's event. There's going to be Iowa Water Summit October 8th at the Izaak Walton League in Des Moines, in conjunction or in cooperation with the Iowa Nature Summit at Drake University, the 9th and 10th. So those 3 days, October 8th, 9th, and 10th, is going to be all focused in on water quality on the 8th and nature and how it all ties together with public health and so forth. But so I will link you to that, and we'll keep you updated on the Driftless Defenders. I'm going up for that event as well next Saturday. So thanks again, everybody, for your time, and Dale, thanks again, and everybody else that's on this
Well,
call.
Christine, we gotta make sure to thank you. If you
Oh.
know, thanks for connecting us with all these resources. This is an incredible group. And you
Yeah.
know, water rights are fundamental rights, and it's through the experiences that you have already gone through and the resources you connected with us with that's going to set us up for success.
Well, we're thrilled to have that area whole covered now, because we understand there's a lack of information and data, and it's so great to have people on the ground that care and that want to work with the community members to help clean up our waterways in our land.
Thank you. Thanks for
you.
setting us up.
Have a beautiful week, everybody. Thanks.